guys, it's Pastor Ken here. Just want to share with you another daily devotional thought for Holy Week, Tuesday of Holy Week. And so we've looked at yesterday how Jesus, he cleansed the temple on Monday of Holy Week. Then on Tuesday, he's in Jerusalem again, and people are asking all sorts of questions, and there's so much that happens on this Tuesday of Holy Week. But there's one part that I wanted to look at and focus on today, and maybe we can pray into it at the end of this video. But basically he gets asked by some theologians of the day, hey, what's your reading of the law? What do you think the essence of the law is? What's the most important law that there is in the Bible? So this is a big question for the religious leaders of the day, because God had given like 613 to 617, depending on how you count them, so about 600 plus laws in the Jewish Torah, and there was always debate about which is the most important law. And this is Jesus' take on it, and he says in Mark chapter 12 verse 29, the most important one, answered Jesus, is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And then verse 31, the second one is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. What Jesus does is he takes all the laws, 600 plus laws of the Jewish covenant, the Torah, the law, and he distills them down. He summarizes them down all the way from 612, 13, 617, all the way down to 2. Love the Lord your God with your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. The theologian, the teacher of the law, actually agrees with Jesus, says, yeah, I think you're right. And what I find really interesting about Jesus' answer is that it puts into perspective what the law is all about. Sometimes we have this idea that God gives us laws because he's anti-fun. He doesn't want us to party or whatever, but that's not God's intent at all. When God gave his law, it can be summarized in love God and love your neighbor as yourself, because he's all about relationship. He's all about seeing our relationships flourish. And when he gives us the law, even in the Ten Commandments, it's to restrain human evil, but to promote human flourishing at the same time. And so Jesus says the whole law can be summarized as love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I think about what we're going through as a world right now. I just imagine how would we be doing, I think, better perhaps if we could live like this, if we could love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and if we could love our neighbor as ourselves. Imagine that. Imagine when, instead of being afraid, we're actually looking out for other people. Instead of focusing in on ourselves, we were looking, okay, how can I love my neighbor? Obviously with social distancing and all that kind of stuff, but how can I love my neighbor as myself? And what I find even more remarkable about Jesus' answer is that he goes on to show that he's not just talking the talk, he actually walks the walk. Just a few more days from Tuesday of Holy Week, and then Jesus is going to lay down his life in his obedience to God the Father and in his love for his neighbor. Maybe even his neighbors to say, yeah, I want that guy crucified. Jesus still loves that neighbor. He still loves me. He still loves you. And that's just a thought that I wanted to leave with you for Holy Week this week. But let's be praying into that. Let's be thinking about how we can love God more, perhaps, how we can demonstrate our love for God, and how we can love our neighbor. What actions? So there's things that we can say, obviously, but what about our actions? How are our actions showing that we love God, and how are our actions showing that we love our neighbor? So let me pray into that. Jesus, I thank you so much. You had a very powerful way of simplifying concepts of who God is, and you show us, you take the law, 613 laws, and you distill them all the way down to 2. You summarize them. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. And Lord, if we could only live like that, the world would be such a better place. And I thank you that that's what you actually call us to do, because you want to see the world be a better place. And I pray that this Holy Week, as we're coming up to Good Friday, as we're coming up to Easter Sunday, that you would encourage us and help us and being able to think, how are you calling us to love you more in our relationship with you? And how are you calling us to love our neighbors as ourselves in our relationship with them? So Lord, it's not necessarily easy, And sometimes there's a cost involved. Sometimes it's actually difficult. But I thank you, Jesus, that you demonstrated your love for God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, God the Father, by going to the cross in obedience. And also, you demonstrated your love for your neighbour, even the neighbours that didn't like you. You showed your love for them by laying down your life for them on Good Friday. And so I just pray that you would speak to us, you'd encourage us, and you'd help us to be, just maybe this coming week, just to be more thoughtful of who you are and who you're calling us to be. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Well guys, I hope that was encouraging, and as always, be blessed.